welcome to Reimagining Star Wars. And today we're going to talk about Deal or No Deal and the new Clone Wars episode. Was it 6? Was from season 7?
Yes.
And we're pretty excited about this. Go ahead and introduce yourself there, Santa.
Oh, this is Star Wars Santa, and it's good to be again together to talk about new Star Wars content. And watched the episode this morning, episode 6, Deal No Deal, and excited to kind of go through it with you all today.
Yeah, I actually really like this. I know that people are talking about it because we're not, I guess, because we're not going straight into the Siege of Mandalore, but I actually am really enjoying this kind of build up. I think that people are not liking this introduction of Trace and Rafa, but I actually am liking the aspect of Ahsoka having to deal with her right and wrong, black and white morality, and having to almost be the angel on the shoulder kind of thing for these girls, and realizing that they're not from the same world that she's from, and that she has. I mean, I like that. I also like the aspect that we're seeing with Rafa, and Rafa is not a good person, and I think we're clearly seeing that.
Yeah, I think what you just said, the intro to the episode, the news talkie over top, put that really, really well. That Ahsoka is seeing that the folks down in the bowels of Coruscant don't see the Jedi as these paragons of virtue, and she just learned that lesson herself. That's essentially what the guy says, and that's absolutely correct. And so she's trying to figure out what she thinks about it, and here she's run into other people that also don't see the Jedi in this elevated position of moral high ground, and this is really a continuation of Ahsoka's story. And regardless what you think of Trace and her sister Rafa, it is helping Ahsoka work through this identity crisis that she's going through now, and no longer being a Jedi. Not only that, but seeing that the Jedi are not what she always thought they were. It's really good.
Right. I mean, the perspective that I'm getting with Ahsoka is not necessarily that she's wrong, or even that the Jedi are per se wrong morally. It's just that I think we're starting to get this idea that it's easy to be moral when you have all the resources and the privilege of being on the top. I mean, there's a statement that Trace where she's talking about, where'd you learn all those skills, and she said she went to Skywalker Academy.
Yeah.
And she's like, but I've never heard of it. And she's like, actually, I've never heard of any academy because they don't have academies down here, and even if they did, I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I thought it was a little risky for Ahsoka to call it Skywalker Academy, because I thought maybe Skywalker would be a name they knew. But you're right. I mean, they are so far removed from what's going on outside of their lives down in the bowels of the planet that they have no idea which Jedi is which and who's who and what's going on out there. It doesn't affect them.
Right.
Not in a direct sense.
They've talked about this in other episodes, how they're not able to police the galaxy and keep the organized crime down because they're so busy dealing with the war.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been mentioned in several other episodes prior to this.
That's true.
And I think that's kind of belies where they're at. So the Jedi aren't keeping a lid on things anymore. So like whether it's the Pikes or whatever little ruffian or gangster, they're able to expand and create turmoil in people's lives, and where if the Jedi had been there, it may have not been so bad.
Right, exactly. And the Coruscant, we're talking level 1313, so that's 1,313 floors beneath the surface, right? I think that's how it's counted. It's counted down, right?
Right.
So you're 1,300 floors below. That's you're pretty far down, and this level is known for in other Star Wars canon or lore, I should put. 1313, if I'm not mistaken, was part of a game. Is that right?
Yes, that was it was going to be the game of the Coruscant underworld.
Yeah. So it's interesting that it's 1313, but you get when you get 1,000 levels below the surface, and the Jedi, their attention is all above the surface, and into the galaxy. Who is taking care of Coruscant itself? Who's they're essentially self-regulated levels where people work within the confines of the people that have the power.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to think that this is out of sight, out of mind kind of mentality. So they're out of sight of people who normally live a normal life, which is on the surface, and it's a privileged life because if you're up there, you have sunlight. So you're down in the bowels of this worldwide city, and you don't have any privilege. You're forgotten. You don't. The universe doesn't care about you. The city doesn't care about you, and it definitely doesn't seem like the Republic or the Jedi care about you.
Right. Even on the surface levels, you have police and you've got law enforcement. Down at level 1313, there's not very much of that, if any at all.
Right.
So yeah. So there it opens up down there, and Ahsoka and Trace are doing mechanic work, and Rafa comes along with another plot to make money. Right? She's got this
Right.
deal, and it's like, oh no, what is it this time? And she doesn't trust. Rafa does not trust Ahsoka at all, because Ahsoka's not family, and the only people that
Right.
they know they can trust is each other. And
Right.
while Trace is forming friendship with Ahsoka, uh, Rafa not so much, and she's not going
Right.
to extend any kind of trust or courtesy towards Ahsoka just on the advice of her sister. She's got to see that herself, and she just hasn't.
Right.
And Rafa is all about herself.
No, absolutely. I'm perceiving she's not liking Ahsoka because Ahsoka's kind of undermining her manipulation of her sister.
That's exactly right. And then you even see it on the Silver Angel, which is
Right.
Trace's ship is named Silver Angel. As they're flying, you see that um, Trace is starting to trust Ahsoka's judgment and starting to see that her sister's taking advantage of her, and
Right.
that dynamic is coming to the surface more and more. Yeah.
Right.
So
Definitely, Roth is definitely being more and more exposed for being a manipulator and not really a very good person.
yeah, and I think it's interesting that last week you mentioned how Rafa and Trace are combined uh, characteristics of what we see in Han Solo to a large degree.
Right.
It's not a perfect match, but it's very very similar. And in this episode, it specifically said Trace is an aspiring pilot. Right? She thinks she's the best pilot in the galaxy. That's exactly what Han said. She thinks that she's got the fastest ship in the galaxy. That's exactly what Han said. And Rafa is a gambler. Well, we know that that's also what Han is. He's a gambler.
Right.
So I thought it was neat that it was followed up this week with that much specificity that that supports what you mentioned last week. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a dynamic together, and you always kind of have these warring factions, and it's cool to see that in the single character how they can have internal contradictions, but I guess we're getting to see the two characters in this that are they're specific in their thing. But we're getting to see that same kind of contradiction play out with people that are really kind of the same. They're one family. They're one person in that sense.
Yeah.
and it's who comes to the forefront and wins.
Yeah.
And we saw that dynamic change out in Han as we watched the original OT. Now we'll probably watch a similar dynamic went out here, and it kind of just shows you how when the right people get around you, how they can influence you in the right direction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
really that's perfect. Yeah. It's really cool that the parallels are so strong. And I love that you brought my attention to it last week because it definitely played in this week when I was watching it. It's like, oh, look at that. That's exactly, you know. Um, they're
right,
they're not hiding it. It's pretty blatant when you know that specific. So
right,
so the we find out that mission that Rafa has come up with is to go. Well, it's not there yet. She shares that with her sister Trace is a secret, and they won't tell
right,
Ahsoka. And they leave the planet, and Ahsoka knows a lot more than she should know.
right.
Because they start going up and they get into the military lane, Ahsoka's like, you're in the wrong lane. Or like, how do you know? And Ahsoka's been able
I
to
just
play.
know.
Yeah, Ahsoka's been able to play it off before because, well, I listen and I understand what's going on in the world or in the galaxy because I pay attention
right,
to things. And now she's starting to show that she knows too much, and I think that helps undermine Rafa's trust in her. That you can see that. Wait a minute, you're holding information back, and I'm on to you. Um,
right.
and it plays out because they get really close to one of the Republic ships, and lo and behold, who's on board but Anakin.
Yeah,
And
Anakin and Yularen.
yeah, and Yularen's telling them, "Hey, you idiots! You can't be, surfing into this lane. You need to get out. We're going to come and arrest you and take your license away." Trace is like, "License? You actually you need one of those?" She doesn't know, and
That's
it's
how
a
naive she is.
yeah, it's just a hot mess. And they end up going really close to the Republic ship, and Anakin can sense that Ahsoka's there, and it's a nice playback to the original trilogy. I thought from
Yeah,
where Vader sensed, it's like, wait, I sense a presence that I haven't. So here
right.
we get Anakin. He's like, wait, I sense a presence, and you see that Ahsoka responds. So as soon as Anakin
Yep.
senses her, and he hones in on it. And then you see her head kind of snap and her eyes open. Oh, wait, ah, that's Anakin. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It was
And
nice.
it was nice, and I think it harkened back to Darth Vader with Luke too in Empire Strikes Back, where he goes Luke and he reaches out and Luke
Mm-hmm.
hears him on the after he's had his hand cut off on the on the on the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, yeah.
The scene at the end.
It really does. But in my mind, when I saw Yularen saying, "I was getting ready to do this," right, and he says, "Wait,"
Right.
and that reminded me back
Yeah.
when Vader was, he's on the ship, and they tell him, "We're getting ready
Yep.
to
Yep.
send them the transport code, or we're getting ready to approve them, right, to let them
Oh yeah,
come."
that's right. Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi. We're getting ready to. The code checks out, right? Like, but it's an older one,
Right.
but it checks out. And Vader senses it, and then he's like, "Okay, let him
Right.
land." Right? It was.
Right.
To me, it was like
It's a good.
right on with that.
Yeah, very good callback on that one too. I mean, I think we see that play out in those three movies, and we saw this callback here. It was very good.
Yeah, I think so too.
I
So,
agree.
on they go, and they go into hyperspace. There's a silly scene in there about some space break that was causing all kinds of
Oh yeah,
turbulence.
the air brake. She left the air brake on.
Oh Lord, didn't need that line. Didn't need to do that at all. I
Yeah.
thought it was good enough that the ship was rickety because it had never
Right.
flown before, right? She built it from
Right.
pieces. And so just kind of rolled my eyes at that and like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
They were trying to point out that she had never flown hyper. I mean, she already said she never flown hyperspace,
yeah,
and I thought that was good enough. And
yeah,
but and of course, then it got smoother after she shut off the air brake. Oh, I already put the air brakes on. They're trying to highlight that she's naive
yeah.
and that's never really flown before.
Yeah, I could have done without that line because
Yeah,
I thought it was more suspenseful that the ship had never flown, and you get the first
right.
time you get it up, and it's built from parts from a girl that doesn't know anything about. She doesn't have a license. She doesn't know anything about space lanes. She doesn't know anything about uh, licenses or anything. And
Right. She's already said she's only flown speeders and things
yeah,
like that before.
and the ship's about
I mean, we
shaking
don't need
apart.
we don't need that one.
Yeah,
Right.
the ship's about shaking apart, and it's like, is this thing really trustworthy? I thought that was a better storyline. So, anywho,
I know. And she's like, of course it is. I built it.
yeah. So they come out of hyperspace, and immediately Ahsoka knows where they are. She's like, "Oh no! Why are we going to um, Kessel?" Right? And they find
Right.
out that they've got this. She's got this deal with the king, and they take her off to she being Ratha, and then they take her off to this dinner, and you find out that they're going to be transporting spice under the guise of having it turned into medicine,
Right.
which may or may not have been the fact, but the
Oh, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. It was going to the bike.
right, I think so too. But I did see an argument that said, well, probably the trading of medicine was highly lucrative as well, and if it was in a rare medicine or difficult to create medicine, that could have been more profitable than drugs. But either way, um, they were doing it
Well,
underhanded, and it's for the pikes, and that's
right. I think the pirates always want to be paid in raw spice.
yep,
I'm sure some of it is turned into medicine to hide your illicit activities,
yep.
but I'm sure it's not where the majority of the money is made.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And that they're doing business with the Pikes again. Ahsoka's like, you can't be doing business with the Pikes. They're bad news. But it's sort of like, well, too late. We're going to do what we're going to do, and they do it. They make the deal with they load the spice, and they head off to hyperspace. And I thought it was interesting too that when they went from the palace, they're going from the people that have all the money, and they're talking about how rich everybody is from the spices that are being mined from um,
Mm-hmm.
Kessel. Like it's made everybody wealthy. And then you fly around and you go to where it's actually being mined, and they're like, wow, look at all those droids. They're not droids, right? They're people. And those people
Right.
presumably are slaves. And
Right.
they're like, no, they couldn't be slaves. The
No.
Republic wouldn't let that happen. Ahsoka's like,
Right.
well, you would think, but there's plenty of other examples out there where the Republic doesn't do things you think that they would, and in this
Right.
case,
And she also knows that she was sold into slavery to break up the slave trade.
yeah,
And that was
yeah, and so
uh,
of course I was paying attention when they landed there in the mines, harkening back to Solo, because the last
right.
we really did see it there. I was looking to see if they had any Wookiees still, or if they were using droids, but I guess in Solo, right, they released the droids and the Wookiees, so maybe it does make sense that they're using local labor. Um,
Well, I mean, Solo occurs after this. So um, Solo's about 10 years after this, the current.
Okay, I had it backwards.
So, right. So what we're seeing is there's still droids in there. There were
Oh
load
yeah,
lifters
yeah,
that were loading droids, that were loading the spices up.
yeah,
And we saw the slaves there they were digging up the stuff and filling up they're dumping their baskets from what they had dug the spice
yeah.
down in the mines. And Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't think you're going to see Wookiees here at this point because the Wookiees were later sold into slavery to the Pikes by the Empire. So right now, what you see in there, what I saw was a lot of Twi'leks, and the Twi'leks have found themselves multiple times because of where they are in proximity to Kessel.
Yeah.
As a slave trade, and we see them abused and taken advantage of across the galaxy. I mean, we saw that in Return of the Jedi as Ula
Yep.
is a slave dancer to
Jabba.
To Jabba.
Yeah.
And, so I mean, I think they're continuing that, and it's interesting because the Major Domo was a Twilight, just like
oh yeah,
Fortuna was.
Yeah,
right?
Fortuna.
And, and so we see that they really are. They have despicable people within them that are willing to enslave their own people. So I mean that I mean it's one of the things that harkens back to a darker time in humanity, and I would say in some cases still exists in humanity today.
Yeah,
and
that's true. Well, and if you go over into the continent of Africa and a lot of places where precious metals are being mined, or gems, diamonds, right? The blood diamonds are known for the labor practices they have, but also some of the metals that are included in computer components are mined by human labor there as well, and it's terrible conditions. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's important that we have these little bit of moral lessons that are at least planting seeds in our heads to kind of bring some outrage and kind of make us realize that some things are just wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that undertone is really good, and it helps us kind of follow what's going on and what Rafa is supporting.
Yeah.
And so it gives credence to where Ahsoka's standing, and of course Rafa wants to ignore it all because she's only concerned with herself.
Exactly.
And it doesn't fit what she how she wants to think of herself.
Yeah.
So she has that disconnect, and she's wanting to ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they arrive with the Pikes. They take it to Obadiah, the planet Obadiah, and or Obadiah, I think they called it.
Yeah, they did. I think it's Obadiah, though. I think they just mispronounced it, which I think was important that they mispronounced it. So.
Yeah, and then they take it to Marge Krim, Pike leader, and on the, as soon as Ahsoka finds out that's where they're going and that's who they're trading with, she's panicking and knows, like, we can't be going there. They capture people, kill people, they double cross people. The Pikes can't be trusted. You can't go there. But Rafa is insistent, and how do you know so much about the Pikes? And Ahsoka comes up with a plan, and they don't like the plan, but it's the only thing that they have. And Ahsoka is keeping part of what she's going to do secret. And we find out that
but they have to come up with that plan because Trace dumps the spice.
Oh yeah.
So they get into an argument, and so that's the key, and it just really shows how absolutely naive she is.
Yeah.
And so she's come to believe that if she delivers the spice, they're going to take her ship, as opposed to if you enter in this trade, that ship will become theirs.
Right.
And so what Ahsoka wants them to do is just sell that spice for actual good purposes, and then pay that price back and say we're out of there.
Right.
And then and so that they're clear and they're covered and they can get out of the spice trade. Yeah. And so of course Rafa has no part of that, and they start to argue. Yeah. And then but Trace and her misunderstanding of what acts like a 9-year-old.
Yep.
And goes and says, fine, I just want to be a part of it. And she dumps the spice, thinking that'll just get the argument over and end the problem.
Yeah, and she
But
dumps it in the
of
worst
course,
place. Like
oh yeah, in
had she
hyperspace,
dumped
so they'll
it
never find it.
right, had she dumped it when they come out of hyperspace, they might have been able just to go get it because it'd
Right.
been floating out there. But they dropped it during hyperspace, and it's gone. I mean, it's gone.
That's right, and it breaks open and then
Yeah,
sprays everywhere. You know,
yeah.
and of course, so now there's no way for them to recover it.
No.
There's nothing that they can do, and now they owe for 3 cases of spice.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh, and then so it comes up with another plan.
Yeah.
And then and so to do this, and of course it's a bad plan, so it keeps some of her stuff secret, but it's better than any plan they have.
Yeah, because Ahsoka still hasn't revealed that she was a former Jedi, that she has these skills, that she's got these lightsabers, nothing, right? She doesn't offer them any kind of insight to that. And she ends up using the mind control on Marge Krim.
Yeah,
but
she mind tricked him.
But it doesn't work. She doesn't apply it to like everybody in his vicinity, and they end up getting found out because one of Marge Krim's associates, one of his top dogs, says, "Wait, this doesn't smell right to me. I want to check it out." And they check it out and find out that the spice is gone. Ahsoka kind of already prepped for that and had already told Trace to go get things fired up to get out of there quickly, but it doesn't happen quick enough, and they get pulled into a tractor beam, and there's several other ships got them pinned down.
Yeah, Pike patrol ships come and pin them down, and then they're like, "That's fine, I'll get away." And then, of course, you know, the lieutenant had already said, "Fire up the tractor beam."
Yeah.
And,
so now we've got a problem.
Like, we can't go anywhere.
We've got a real big problem, and the question is, I don't know if you want to or not, speculate. How are they going to get out of this problem?
Well, I mean, yeah, so the problem's gone from bad to worse.
Yeah.
First it was, I don't have any spice to deliver you, which they could have then just paid for with their ship and then said, "Hey, can you give us enough to at least get back to Coruscant?" Right?
Right.
And at least they would have had a trade there and they wouldn't have any trouble. But now they've delivered empty crates and taken the money. So now not only do they look like they're double crossing, but they're also getting paid for what they didn't deliver.
Yep.
So there's almost no way that the Pikes will just take their ship as payment now.
No,
so that's the dilemma they're in.
Yeah, and I think there's no way Ahsoka gets out of this without them finding out in the next episode that she is pretty handy with some lightsabers.
Right. Well, the question is, does she have lightsabers?
I think she does. I didn't see her relinquish. Well,
I mean, I know. I mean, not to spoil anything, but if you read the book, Anakin gives her the possible spoiler. Anakin gives her lightsabers back when in the Ahsoka book. So
yeah,
that's what you found out.
Yeah, I read the
Mandalorian.
I read the book. Yeah, so it's I was thinking that she got them back after the trial, but maybe not.
Maybe it was vague enough that they could have given them back at any time. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I have to go back and look at it, but I'm pretty sure it was her favorite. It seemed like the way it was stated is that he gave them back to her on Mandalore.
Okay. Well,
when he left her with Rex.
So I did see, and this is again just speculation, where there's some speculation that because Anakin picked up that Ahsoka was on that ship, that he will be watching it, and that is maybe a situation where Anakin comes and saves their hide. Which would
I think that's absolutely what's going to happen.
Yeah,
he's already watching the Pikes because of what happened in season 6, right? Because they went out there and discovered about Cyclodius and all that, and they
Yep.
happened with the Pike.
Yep.
So he's watching the Pike, he's watching her, and she's got to end up with her lightsabers and on Mandalore fighting with Rex somehow, right?
Yeah.
And it's not because she came back to him and went, "Hey, I want to go fight Maul."
No. So, yeah, I think the next episode, we're definitely going to see them taken into custody. Things are going to be dire. They're going to be terrible. And Anakin is going to find Ahsoka toward the end of it and be breaking her free. And then in the fourth episode of the arc, they will be fighting their way out of the Pike facilities and trying to keep those other two girls alive and dealing with the consequences of all of that. So I think that's where the story's headed.
Right. And so we also know that Maul's got to escape in that time, because remember the last time we saw him was taken prisoner by Darth Sidious. At the very end of that, they have plans for you.
Oh yeah. He wouldn't. He didn't want to kill him.
In season 5.
Yeah,
he didn't kill him. He begged for mercy. He goes, "Oh, I'm not going to kill you. I have plans for you."
Yeah. So we've got a couple of good episodes coming in this arc, I believe, and I know that everybody's not been happy with this arc, but for me, I agree with you. I think it's been really good writing. I think it's been really good giving homage to the original trilogy, some of the themes that we've seen throughout Star Wars, in the movies and in the Clone Wars. And we're dealing with Ahsoka coming to terms with not being a Jedi, and where does she go? What's she do? And we've had a couple of good episodes that have kind of shown her kind of come to terms with her situation.
Yep, I think it's really good. Well, with that, we got to go, and I want to thank you all for tuning into us, and we hope that we added some value to your day, and you have a wonderful evening, and may the Force be with you. And thank you for everything.
Bye.